Alright guys, here's what's up. So this is the water meter that we were just discussing in the previous video, or one of my previous videos, right? So a lot more accuracy on this meter than the meter outside. One point I wanted to reiterate was the reason we have an inside meter is to double check and make sure that both of our meters are giving the same reading and there's no water loss happening somehow, like leaky pipe in between the outside meter and the inside meter. So where the outside water feed comes in is going to be below the meter, goes up into the meter, up into the house, at least in my situation. How do we know this? The hose coming from the outside is down here, and this is where my master water shutoff is. So if you go into a brand new home, or maybe a home that's been for sale for a while, sometimes they've shut the water off because, if a plumbing issue of any sort happens when a house is empty, it can pretty quickly become a catastrophic failure. The other thing why a plumbing line, or at least the master plumbing for the house, might be turned off is if somebody's doing work, right? So anytime anybody talks about doing electricity, they always say turn the breaker off first. Anytime anyone's doing plumbing, you want to turn the water off. So we're going to start in the basement at the master water feed. And we're going to work our way up from there. There are plenty of other places to turn the water off at, but this would be the first place. So on my spigot, or not really spigot, on my feed in from the outside of the house, I just have what looks like a hose spigot, and you turn it clockwise to close it, and hopefully my wife is not upstairs using water, which actually we would hear it. My water meter actually makes noise when it's running. And then you turn it counterclockwise to open it. So it should not leak, should not do anything when you open or close it. When it's all the way open, it stops, and when you get it all the way closed, it will also stop on the other way around. On older shutoffs, sometimes it's a little difficult to get them turned off, and if you end up in a situation where you cannot get the water completely shut off, like you try to shut it off and then you go turn on a faucet and it still runs and there's still water in the line, you might have to have the shutoff replaced, which would take calling your utility company, having the water shut off on the outside. They bring a really big wrench and they stick it into the ground. They turn your water off out there. Then a trained plumber would come and replace your shutoff and redo all this plumbing heading into your meter. And then you would be able to shut off your house water. So let's go to somewhere else in my basement and look at a different type of shutoff. All right, one point I meant to make in my previous video was if you do not know where the master water shutoff for your house, apartment, wherever you live, you should ask a parent about that. If they don't know where the master water shutoff is, everyone needs to figure this out, right? So if you're ever home alone and you're starting to get to the age that you're going to be home alone, and you go to turn off the sink and water starts spewing out from underneath, or who knows what happens, there might be one of those times, and it would probably be dubbed an emergency. But you might need to know where the master water shutoff is. So if you don't know where that is, go ask a parent, sibling, somebody who might know. And if nobody knows, it's time to call the landlord or time to go hunting. So like I said, my water shutoff is not exactly where the water meter on the outside of the house is. Sometimes it's right where that water meter is. Sometimes it's on, in a different part of the basement. But let's look at another shutoff here. I'm going to move the camera, so I'm going to pause for a second. All right, so this is a very weird angle. Looking up by my box of bicycle parts there, and I think that's a kite above the pipe. But this is actually specifically called a shark bite quarter turn shutoff, and we'll talk more about shark bite fittings in future videos. But I actually, on this shelf right here below, came down one evening, went to get a box off the shelf, the bottom fell out of it, and I realized everything on that shelf was soaking wet, and the pipe up here had sprung what was called a pinhole leak. There was actually just a copper coupling here, so all of your, at least all of the older homes, will have copper plumbing pipes. So this pipe had actually sprung a leak in a copper coupling that ran here, so I shut off the master water to the house, got everything drained out, and then cut the pipe right here and right over here. And this is called a slip fitting. So this actually slid this direction, allowing the pipe to slide into the fitting so that I could fit on the other side of this shutoff valve. So that was just my creative solution for needing to fix a leaky pipe. Might as well add another shutoff. Now, how do you shut this off? A lot easier than the turn valve, or like the spigot valve. This is just a quarter turn. So by turning it a quarter of a turn, now it's perpendicular to the pipe, and that means all of the water on the outside of that is going to be shut off. Now, one thing we didn't talk about is even once your water's shut off, there's still going to be pressure in your water line. So obviously if I turn it back on, you don't hear anything because no water needs to go anywhere. This side of the line is full of water and this side of the line is full of water. When I shut this off, I would need to go turn the sink on, flush toilets, do whatever needed to drain that plumbing line before I would want to cut the line and do any work. But this is what you call a quarter turn shutoff valve. And I will say it's one of the larger ones because this pipe is probably 3/4 inch plumbing pipe. And again, here's math, here's your fractions. 3/4 inch plumbing pipe is more of like the main lines down around your basement. When we get up to sinks and faucets, that's more so going to be 1/2 inch. Another type of shutoff to cover just while we're talking about them is above your washing machine in the basement. Hopefully you have met your washing machine and used your washing machine and know how this works, but if not, that's going to be an ask a parent or a sibling at home to teach you how to do your own laundry. You're at the age that you should probably know how. But above this washing machine, you're going to find your shutoffs for your hot and cold water. If any laundry has been done recently, at least on the hot cycle, you should be able to feel and figure out which one's which. You could also trace back and follow which one's going to be your hot water and your cold water. In our situation, if I trace back the lines, because we have an unfinished basement, you can see right over there is where our refrigerator line comes out of the cold water. So that would let me know that that line is going to be our cold water line. But what we're talking about right here is water shutoffs. So again, here is going to be your hot and cold water shutoffs, just like my master shutoffs. I just turn it clockwise or to the right to turn it off. I would turn it left or counterclockwise to turn the water back on. You'll notice there's actually splitters right here, and a lot of people do this in their basement. We split our water lines so these go to the washer, the black lines do, and then these silver lines actually go to our utility sink. So if you wanted to install a new utility sink or run some new lines, you can just kind of pick up the water supply wherever you can find it and make sure that you do it correctly. We'll talk more about plumbing in another video, but this is all Teflon taped and nice and secure, so I know it's not going to leak. All right, guys, one of the last types of shutoffs that you're probably going to see is under a sink. Or under your kitchen sink, really anywhere that water is coming out of the floor, out of the wall, into something else, you're probably going to find a shutoff. So this oxidation down here, we'll talk about that in just a moment, but these again are just quarter turn shutoffs. So you'd kind of just gently touch it and decide, figure out which way it can turn. But again, perpendicular to the flow of water is going to be off. So when I turn it back this way, parallel to the flow of water, that's going to be on. So for my cold water over here, that would be off. And if I turn it that way, that would be on. Now, how do I just immediately know that this is my cold water and this is my hot water? The oxidation here is an indicator that as hot water has flowed through this pipe, we've had some condensation on the outside of the pipe that would then cause the copper or whatever metal that is to form some oxidation or some rust. Now, if you see a lot of that going on or lots of it way further down the pipe, that might be an indication that you've got a leak happening in your threads here because this shutoff valve is threaded in to this nut that then attaches it to the pipe. So you'd want to check it. There's also some oxidation down here. I've got a coupler a little bit lower. So you keep an eye on those things and make sure, is that just from some condensation that's formed, or is there a leak or anything else potentially happening? All right, so we're going to end this video outside like we began. Sorry if you hear the squeak toy in the background. Marley is out here playing. But I realized the one shutoff that we didn't talk about, that most people already know about but don't necessarily think about, especially as we head into winter, is the hose shutoff outside. So this is a hose bib, or actually it has a whole lot of different names, but this is how you shut off your hose water, right? So same counterclockwise is going to be on, and then clockwise is going to be off. So this hose obviously down here needs a little bit of love. But then the other thing you want to make sure as we head into winter is not only shut off your hose, but then disconnect that hose line. Especially if you have a frost-proof spigot, it will then drain out the water that's inside of it because it actually shuts the water off further back inside of your house. And this should not actually stay full of water so that it doesn't freeze. So yeah, go around inside your house, make sure that you're aware of the different shutoffs in case an emergency happens, but then make sure that you go outside and shut off and disconnect all your hoses before winter really hits us. So that's going to be my water shutoff video, and I don't know what video we'll make next. But here's Marley saying, make sure you know where your shutoffs are.